Hi everyone, today I'm talking about the Belle Sauvage, Volume 1 of the Book of Dust by Pullman. This is a new trilogy. This is the first book of the Book of Dust trilogy that is a companion sort of trilogy to the original His Dark Materials by Pullman, which is amazing. If you haven't read this, you really should. It's incredible. One of my most favorite trilogies, one of my most favorite worlds that I've read. It's just such an imaginative, wonderful, adventurous world, and I loved it so much. I reread it recently and it was amazing. Definitely read this if you haven't. Just to say what this is about, I'm just going to read like a short part of the inside flap. It says, Northern Lights, which is the first book, introduces Lyra, an orphan who lives in a parallel universe in which science, theology, and magic are entwined. Lyra's search for a kidnapped friend uncovers a sinister plot involving stolen children and turns into a quest to understand a mysterious phenomenon called dust. So there's three. This is a bind-up of the three books in the His Dark Materials trilogy: Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. I love this trilogy so much. Go and read it if you haven't. I would say that you should read it before you read the Book of Dust. There are some spoilers, I think, if you read this first. So definitely read this trilogy first, His Dark Materials first, and enjoy. It's amazing. This new trilogy is sort of parallel to His Dark Materials. So this one is set, I think, 10 or 20, I think 10 years before the events of His Dark Materials. I think the second book in this trilogy is going to be set during, and the last book 10 years after. It happens in the same world. There are some of the same characters. Lyra in this book is a baby, so I think it's 10 years, because I think she's 11 in His Dark Materials, so 10 years before. And yeah, we get to see the world again. We get to be back in this world. If you've read His Dark Materials, you know how wonderful this world is and how amazing it is. I've heard other people say that it's like a warm hug to read this and to be back in this world, and I completely agree. It is so wonderful, and so, like, I just started reading, I was like, oh, I'm here. I'm so glad to be like back in this world, and it's amazing. This book focuses on Malcolm Polstead, who is 11, I think. His parents own a pub, and he lives with them above it, I think. And the pub is next to a river. Next, on the other side of the river is a nunnery, and the nunnery sometimes takes in wards? Wards? Is that the right word? And one day a baby arrives, and who should that baby be but Lyra? So, yeah, Lyra is a baby in this book. We see baby Pantalaimon, baby Lyra, and a bunch of other characters from the original trilogy. It's so great to see them, but to see them in different environments at different ages. Even if, like, there are certain characters who you really don't like necessarily, but who are still amazing and so well written and wonderful to be able to see again, and to see at a different time of their life. And yeah, it was just great to expand on the world, to understand more things. There's more explanation about demons, and like little other things in the book. This new trilogy is supposed to expand on dust, the Book of Dust, so we are going to get to learn more about it. We did learn a little bit about it in this book, but I think it'll definitely be more expanded in the next two books. I will say with the world that this is a bit darker than His Dark Materials, which is interesting. So if you've read His Dark Materials, that has violence and like action and that sort of stuff, but this one has it maybe a bit more up close. For example, there's like a dead body that's described and is like seen by the main character who's 11. So something like that. Maybe there's violence in His Dark Materials, but it's not maybe as up close as it is here. There is an instance of rape and self-harm. There's one specific character who sort of brings the dark tone with him, who was interesting. He was interesting. And there is swearing, which I've heard other people say. I didn't really notice the swearing except for one time. But I imagine there's more, just like, letting you know. This book is divided into two parts. The first part is definitely the slower building part. We are introduced to the world, we're introduced to Malcolm and his sort of environment, the people that he interacts with, and how he sort of is drawn into dust and into what is happening on a larger scale, and we see like sort of his character slowly becoming immersed in things that are happening. And we also get to see other characters from the previous trilogy and see how they come into play into things and how they're involved and what they're doing, 10 years before. So yeah, it's definitely a slower pace. There was nothing that made me bored or disinterested. Like the whole way through the first part, I was like interested, I was enjoying it. Like I didn't feel like, I knew it was slower paced. There was some action, but it was definitely like slow paced. I knew that, but I wasn't enjoying it any less because it was great. I loved it. I loved being in this world. The second part is action. There's so much action in the second part. So much is happening. It just like keeps happening and keeps going. And I felt that unbalancedness for the book. Like, I it didn't necessarily detract from the story for me, but I felt like the first part was like much slower and the second part was just like going, going, going. So yeah, it definitely felt like the first book of a trilogy, where it didn't feel like a nice sort of well-rounded story in a sort of way because of how unbalanced things were. Another thing I didn't really like was near the end of the book there's sort of like an aspect of magic that's introduced, and like this is like a parallel fantasy world sort of, and so it's weird. It felt weird to me because everything else in the book is so well grounded. Like I've just accepted all of the parts of the book that are like, you know, magical and fantasy aspects. But this was just so abruptly introduced and it felt weird. I think it was meant to be quite strange and quite like dreamlike almost, but it felt a bit strange, and felt abrupt, and I like actually stopped reading. I was like, what's happening? Like I like looked back a few pages like to see if I'd missed anything because it just felt so strange. Finally, let's talk about characters. Malcolm. Malcolm, the main character of this book, is interesting because he's perfect. He has no flaws. But not only that, he just feels super well-rounded and, like, content with life. He like, you know, works hard and he gets enjoyment and happiness from that. He likes to help people out. He like, you know, he respects his family. He helps the nuns across the river. He is liked by everyone. And he's 11. And like, I don't know, it wasn't just that he was perfect, it was that he's this 11-year-old who's like content and happy with life to the fullest. And there's this feeling of he can do more and he has the intelligence to do more and to be a bigger part of what's happening. But if he didn't, he'd be content with that and be happy with it. And it was so strange because he's 11. Like, I don't know why, but it felt so, it's weird. It's weird that he's 11 and he's at this sort of like enlightened stage. It just, I don't know. I don't know any 11-year-olds, but I just expected more, like, irresponsibility, more, like, less perfectness, and less calm. He was such a calm character, and such a, like, not just calm as in, like, you know, he can, like, do his thing quietly and, like, be happy, but also calm and, like, he takes things in his own stride, and there's a maturity to him that just feels not 11. The other thing with characters that I wasn't a fan of was there is a really well-developed friendship. Stay with me. There was a really well-developed friendship. It happened, you know, nicely over a good amount of time. I liked the two characters, and their dynamic together. And then at the end, there was a hint of romance. And this happened in his Dark Materials. There was a friendship that was really well developed. I really liked the two characters together, their dynamic and their relationship together as friends. But then romance was sort of tacked on. And you know, it's not insta romance because it's been happening for a long time, but it doesn't, like, the romance doesn't feel like it's been happening. The friendship feels like it's been happening. The romance, I understood for his Dark Materials, but I was just like, okay. But for this, it feels like it's happening again. I feel like the next book I'm going to pick it up and like 10 years later they're going to be married or something. And I'm like, friendship is enough, you know? And also, you're 11. You don't need to find your soulmate. You're 11. Like, I don't know, maybe this 11-year-old could, because he's not a normal 11-year-old, I don't think. But like, also, he's 11. Like, he doesn't, like, friendship is enough, and nothing, like, it doesn't always need to lead to romance or to, like, head in that direction. Like, they could just be really great friends, you know? And it was annoying to me because I liked the characters together, and I liked their relationship, but then this romance was just, like, happening. I was like, there can't be chemistry because they're 11. Like, there can't be, like, a spark because they're 11. You know, maybe I just don't know what it's like to be 11. If you're 11, let me know. What's up? What's life like? I know this review has mostly been negative, but I really did enjoy the book. I love the world so, so much. One of my favorite literary worlds that I've ever read. I did enjoy Malcolm. He is perfect, and weirdly mature for an 11-year-old, but he's very charming, he's very likable, he's protective over Lyra, and, you know, I liked him. I enjoyed his point of view. So yeah, I'm giving it 4 out of 5. That is my review. If you've read it, let me know about it in the comments below. If you're 11, let me know about it in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Bye.